I wanted a simple life, but my ex-wife was not the type to turn down any attention. This was the reason I had news cameras following me everywhere as she sat on the stand with a smug smile plastered across her face. Just a few months back, I was getting ready to test drive a Lambo in Malibu, and now I was about to lose everything. The one ace I had up my sleeve was my lawyer, but I couldn't be sure she would come. I should start at the beginning. At midnight on my 18th birthday, I became a millionaire. Well, 5 million to be precise. You see, since I was young, I had a massive talent for memorization, and when it came to math, that came in quite handy. Everyone around me soon knew I was gifted, and it wasn't long before I skipped grade after grade until I became one of the youngest high school students in the country. Being that young and that smart was a gift and a curse. All the girls thought I was the cutest thing on the planet, and the guys, well, they thought I was a know-it-all, female-hogging show-off. Despite the girls protecting me as much as they could, I was constantly annoyed by, well, everyone. The football team, the band, the math league, no one wanted anything to do with me. At that point, I would have done anything to move on to college where I could do my own thing without the pressure of high school life. Little did I know, I was being set up by not only the guys in my class, but by one of my teachers as well. My science teacher couldn't stand that I knew even one thing more than he did. Turns out what I knew and he didn't could fill an encyclopedia. She made my life a nightmare by giving me entirely different tests than my classmates. And even when I aced these ridiculously hard tests, I was positive he was changing my answers to the wrong ones. Despite crushing it in all of my other classes, I was failing Mr. Henry's class completely. Seeing as I was the smart kid in class, or at least that was what I was told by the guys, I had an obligation to help them pass. When they surrounded me in the hall, I knew they weren't asking if I would help them cheat. They were telling me. Being almost 2 feet shorter than them, what other choice did I have? I soon became the go-to guy for all the quizzes and tests we were given. That is until I was caught. My science teacher was all too happy for the tip-off. He now had all the evidence he needed to get me expelled from school for cheating. And that's exactly what he did. All the colleges I'd been early accepted to revoked their offers. No one wanted to bring a known cheater to their school. My parents were furious. Not because I had possibly lost my bright future, but because their cash cow was now a disgraced laughingstock. There was no way they could make money off my genius brain now that I wasn't going to college. I had ruined their plan. I had no scholarships and no money to continue my education. I begged and begged them. I'll do anything. If you guys could just maybe give me half the money so I can go to community college. I'll get a job and pay the other half. You've completely embarrassed this family after everything we've done for you, and you make us the parents of a known cheater. You need to live with your choices. The one choice you don't have to make is whether you're going to live here or not. And with that, I was kicked out of my childhood home. I had become a high school dropout, and being well under 16, I didn't even have a chance to legally work anywhere. Luckily, my old girlfriends from high school let me sleep at their places. I paid them back by being the tech guy for their videos and live streams. I wasn't making money, but at least I had a couch to lay my head on. What happened next was a total accident. Or maybe you could call it dumb luck. All I wanted to do was make it easier for all my girlfriends to connect and collaborate on their various channels. I developed an app that only a handful of the girls used, and before I knew it, the app had hundreds of users. Then, thousands, and finally hundreds of thousands of influencers and beauty bloggers were using my app. I was offered more checks than I could remember. Every company wanted to buy the rights to my app. This was what I had been waiting for. I finally lined up the biggest offer I had. I was ready to sign on the dotted line and become a multi-millionaire, when in bursts my parents. They quickly vetoed my deal, seeing as I was a minor and they were technically still my legal guardians. I still needed the money though, and I was sure that an app as popular as mine would soon have plenty of copycats. I had to act quickly if I wanted to retain any rights to my idea. I signed the contract for $10 million under the stipulation I couldn't receive it until I turned 18. What followed was the longest 2 years of my life. To keep up the ruse, I had to move back in with my parents, with them in control of all the money I made. They did the best they could to spend every cent of my 10 million. With no access to my money, I watched helplessly as they invested in every get-rich-quick scheme you could imagine. I would come home and find the entire living room full of scratch tickets, crypto-mining computers, rare coins, Beanie Babies even. Any harebrained idea they could think of. They were determined to use my money to make themselves rich. As the summer of my 18th birthday rolled around, I tried to ignore all the blatant antagonism from my parents. I would be a relatively rich man soon, and more importantly, I would be free to do whatever I wanted. Build whatever I want, and most importantly, be around whoever I wanted. That's when I met my wife. I cringe even saying those words. Lola, if that even is her real name, was quickly becoming one of the biggest influencers on my app, and that winter, she did everything she could to get in contact with me. Eventually, I was pestered into responding, and that may have been the biggest mistake I've ever made. Oh, Peter, I just wanted to thank you for giving me the opportunity to become a star on your platform. You and I could become a real powerful couple. I can be a popular singer like Grimes, and you can be my weirdo, filthy rich tech boyfriend, Elon. It's a perfect match. I took her next offer only because I couldn't stand to live with my insufferable parents any longer. Why don't you come stay with me? My parents are loaded, and you can work on all your new apps in my dad's office. Anything you need, I can take care of it, Petey. You and I are a team. The next few months were productive, but totally anxiety-filled. With Lola's resources and attention, I was programming app after app that I knew could corner a ton of markets. At the same time, I was watching my bank account slowly dwindle down to nothing. Whatever my parents were spending my money on, it was certainly expensive. All my girlfriends from high school were throwing me a massive surprise party for my 18th birthday. I should have known, but Lola was doing her utter best to ruin my day. In fact, she had spent most of her time during our relationship ensuring all my female friends were kept well away. All those girls hitting you up are just straight-up gold diggers. I don't understand how you can't see that. They are just using you. Are you that naive? Those girls were the only ones who protected me during high school. I would have been beaten to a pulp without them. Yeah, that, or you just want to hook up with them. You know what? I'm out of here. Once again, I had turned into the perennial bad guy. Surely she would tell her parents, and they would treat me like a second-class citizen. The truth was, I wanted out of this relationship, and with a few weeks until I turned 18 and received what little money left my parents didn't spend, ending this relationship was looking rather enticing. But, as tends to happen in my life, I had a nasty surprise waiting for me as I walked in the door of their mansion. I had no choice but to tell my parents how you've been treating me, Peter. Young man, we've tried to give you all the comforts of a real home and take you in as our own. And you disrespect our princess of a daughter. I only see one solution here, and the decision rests in your hands. Lola's dad laid out his crooked ultimatum that held all my original programming hostage. Having worked on her dad's work servers, all of my work was password encrypted, and only one person had the key. Lola. I'm willing to accept your apology, Petey. Maybe we can work out some deal for you to get your work back, but I need some commitment from you. You need to marry me right now and show me you believe in us. Believe in us? You're blackmailing me. And we can't get married. We're still 17. Don't you think we already thought of that, silly? Dad has the private jet waiting to take us to Massachusetts. You can get married with parental consent at 12 there. My parents would never agree to something like that. Actually, young man, they already have. She held up a letter, and sure enough, my parents' signature was right at the bottom. I soon worked out that this whole sham of a romance with Lola had been set up by my parents. They had gotten used to the wealthy lifestyle, and they couldn't have me turning 18 ruin that. I wondered how much of a cut they were going to get from Lola and her family. So, 2 days before I was finally an adult, I found myself in the backwoods of a state I had never been to, getting married to a girl I despised. Worst of all, I knew that anything I had come up with was now technically half of hers. I was in the exact same position I had been in with my parents. I couldn't be a sucker. Twice! I had to do something! When the private jet landed back in our town, I immediately snuck out a back door, escaping my new captors-in-law. When I arrived just in time for my birthday surprise, I barely reacted to all my high school girlfriends screaming, "Surprise!" Oh, yeah, thanks, girls. I appreciate it, but I need your help with something else. I spent my whole party explaining what I needed from each and every one of them. Seeing as they were older than me and further along in their careers, I had the advantage of having help from all angles. Some were celebrity influencers, some were local politicians, and most importantly, some were lawyers. That following week, I showed back up at Lola's parents' house. They were having a party like they did every weekend, and I knew that would be the best place to set this backstabbing family up. Oh, look who's finally decided to show up. You're just in time. Right this way, son. He put a sleazy arm around me and led me to the backyard where everyone was milling about. Ladies and gentlemen, this embarrassment is my new son-in-law. At least for the next few weeks. Isn't that right, honey? Lola stepped up right on cue. Her speech was well rehearsed. Clearly, you don't care anything about me, and you're not the person I thought you were. Disappearing right before our honeymoon is unacceptable. My only option is to file for divorce. Daddy will be sending you the paperwork. With that, her security grabbed me and threw me out of the house. Fresh Prince style. I was seething, but I knew this was just the setup I needed. That night I called my girls and told them it was time. I got to the court early that day, and it was already packed with people. Onlookers, news reporters, protesters with signs. My influencer girlfriends had done their job by gathering a massive crowd and buzz on social media. Lola and her family were shocked at the scene. All this for a simple divorce proceeding? I sat in my seat with my feet up as they came into the courtroom. I wasn't surprised when my mom and dad walked in as well, ready to make sure their cut was coming to them. The judge got everyone to sit, and the trial was underway, except my lawyers. Your Honor, he doesn't even have a lawyer. He's treating this whole process like a joke. His mother and father couldn't trust him with his money when he was younger, and my daughter couldn't trust him to be a faithful husband. He's completely irresponsible. Look what he's done to my daughter. Lola sat there, head in hands, trying to do her best Amber Heard impression when in walked my lawyer. My friend Angela had been a model for many years, but got bored and decided to pursue law. Now, she was one of the best lawyers in the country, and she was sitting next to me. Sorry I'm late, Your Honor. I had to drop my current case to come represent my #1 client. Let's get started. For the next few days, Angela eviscerated not only Lola and her family, but my parents as well. She called all of my girlfriends from high school as character witnesses, and my divorce trial at 18 had soon become a media frenzy. The trial was making the girls and I into local celebrities. Everyone wanted to know who was the Tony Stark-like whiz-kid millionaire with a ton of beautiful girls willing to go to bat for him. By the end of the trial, Lola and her family's tears were oh so very real. Angela was able to prove her family took me across state lines against my will, and the marriage was null and void. She also got her corporate lawyers at her firm to bankrupt Lola's father's company for stealing my intellectual property. My parents also were made to pay back all of the money they stole during my childhood. With interest. I knew they didn't have the funds to pay that back, so I generously offered them a job as the help on the villa I planned to buy. It was a win-win. They could pay their debt back and spend quality time with their only son. The trial made me and my girlfriends overnight sensations, and we all used the bit of fame to supercharge our individual careers. Me, on the other hand, I just wanted to work in peace and quiet. The only interruptions I want are my parents asking what they can get me next.